Master the business of speaking with your hosts, Taylor and Austin. You're listening to Technically Speaking.
Welcome to another episode of Technically Speaking. We're your hosts, Taylor and Austin, and in today's episode, we're talking about bureaus. Now, one of the most popular requests among speakers is to one day work with a bureau or speaker management company. We hear all the time, I just want to work with a bureau so I can focus on speaking. Well, my friends, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that is the wrong mentality. So what is a bureau for? How is it different from speaker management companies? And how do you start working with bureaus? And how do you know you're at a point where they would take you seriously? All of these questions and more we're tackling in today's episode. So to help us cover this industry and this question particularly is industry legend 40-year bureau owner Diane Goodman. Diane Goodman was the founder of Goodman Speakers Bureau and is today one of the world's leading bureaus. After successfully exiting, she started Goodman Speakers Management Company to continue supporting the industry. And she is the leader in knowledge of bureaus, management companies, and how speakers can leverage those relationships successfully. So, without further ado, let's get into it. As always, stick around till the end for some awesome resources, and we hope you enjoy this one. See you in there. And we are live. Diane, it's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to Technically Speaking.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here today.
Yeah. Oh man, we are so excited for this one. Seriously, right? A true legend on the show with us.
Thank you. I take that as a compliment.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Good. You should. Yeah. Nothing but good things from lots of people. In fact, I think the first time that I heard your name was from Dave Raymond.
Oh,
Dave Raymond.
Sure.
I don't know. If you remember him or not, such a good guy.
Oh, yeah,
but
definitely.
He said that
yes.
He met you and loved you. So anyways, since then, I've been very excited to meet you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. For sure. Definitely. And shout out Dave if you're listening to this.
Hey Dave, we love you.
We do.
Diane, we are really excited to unpack what we have in store here today. You have such a depth of experience in the space. 40 years, is that right?
Yes, and counting.
Wow. And counting.
Leave it there.
Yes, leave it there. 40 and counting. So what have you seen as the most striking development over those 40 years? Can you just paint a picture of that timeline for us?
Sure. Well, when I started 40 years ago, I mean, you probably don't even know because you probably weren't born then. But, the industry was very small. I mean, there were only 12 speakers bureaus in the country then, which is, you think about it now in the world, there's, I don't know how many hundreds, maybe thousands. And same thing with speakers, professional speakers. It was a very small group of people, and now there are thousands and thousands. Everyone's a speaker, for instance. So that in itself, I think over the years, just watching that evolve, certainly the relationship between speakers bureaus, there was none for many years. There no communication. No one would help each other, talk to each other, or support each other. That has changed dramatically over time for the better for everyone, I think. And then the evolution of speaker management companies that have come into play over the past 10, 15 years or so, but have really been emerging in the past 5 years. Companies like yours that are, out there to help speakers. I think the model you have is fantastic, but there are others too that are supporting speakers in different ways. So, I think where we are now, like everything else, technology has sort of taken over everything that we do. And we, meaning people of my generation, have really had to adapt. And the bureaus of those 12 back then, and as they came out, we've had to adapt and make lots of changes along the way and almost start over in some ways because it became a very different way of relating to people. So I think those are the main things that I've seen. All for the good. I think we're in a good space. It's just a very crowded space in many ways. So that's my assessment.
Wow, that's a good assessment. So thank you for that right off the top. There's a lot to unpack there. And there's one thing that stood out, and I'm sure we'll ask some other questions to go a little deeper with some of that, but the relationship between other bureaus. I didn't realize that bureaus communicated that much in the here and now. I kind of figured that it was pretty segmented. So why do you think that's happened?
Well, I think what happened is there were a lot of bureau. The early bureaus were the big bureaus, and they had a lot of exclusive speakers. So they
Mm.
kept everything close to the chest. They didn't want anyone else, stepping on their toes or going into their territory. And I think over time, what happened was as bureaus like mine emerged, where we didn't have exclusives. We were, working for clients and wanted to just book as many speakers as we could. And I think at some point there was this aha moment that they said, wow, this could be a whole marketing arm for us if we wanted to collaborate and co-broker. And so that the co-brokering emerged and evolved. And it worked well. It really worked well for everyone. And I think that then led to other kinds of relationships that bureaus had with each other and formed our association. I am a founding member of the IASB, which is International Association of Speakers
Yeah.
Bureaus. It was initially called, and you will appreciate this, IGAB. Cute. Cute,
Oh,
huh?
That is
nice.
appropriate.
Wow,
As
that
we
is
became
awesome.
more professional, we changed the name to something more professional. But yeah, that's what it was called, and that the association really allowed us to really look at ethical issues, contract issues, legal issues, all kinds of things that we were all experiencing on our own, and it those kinds of meetings and dialogues really helped the industry become much more professional. And you really have to sign off on an ethical statement to join our association. And so I certainly, even when I had the bureau, I would not work with another bureau that was not part of our association, because to me that said if they're not willing to sign off on that statement, well, that made a statement to me. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's that's part of, I think, why bureaus are communicating so effectively and cooperatively these days, for
Yeah.
sure.
Wow, that makes so much sense.
Mhm.
So 40 years ago, is that when you started your bureau, or like how did you get into the space? Did you just see the need for a bureau? Like how did that come up?
Yeah,
Where did that
I mean,
evolution
my
start?
stories are just, we all have stories of how we fall into this industry, because no one like starts out saying, I want to be in the speaker world.
Yeah,
Um,
right. You just kind of
Except
stumble
now they
into it,
do.
huh?
But no, I was really doing volunteer work for nonprofits, just kind of volunteering for these lecture series committees and whatever. And I found there was no place to really find speakers. And so it just became like an idea of, oh, this could be fun kind of thing. Didn't realize, I
Yeah.
mean, I really had no business background. I really did not know what I was doing at all, but thought that someone could use some help. And of course, my world was nonprofits. So I didn't even think about money and charging and whatever. It was just sort of a service I was starting to create. And when sent out, I created this nice little brochure, recruited a few speakers, and bought a mailing list just here in Connecticut, because this was my world here. And my little tariff cards came back from major corporations. I mean, Connecticut here in Hartford was Aetna, Travelers. I mean, all the major insurance companies were headquartered here. And they checked off this box of other type of speaker, because I had, just these other little topics of motivational speakers, economists, journalists. I mean, it's like, wow, I had no idea what they were talking about. So I made appointments and went and met with them. And I learned a lot. There was one person specifically who said to me, you have no idea that you're in $1 billion industry, do you? And I said, no. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you about your own industry. It was wonderful. I mean, he was a wonderful mentor, and I'm forever indebted to him for really giving me the big picture of my own industry. And so from there I said, well, this is the way I want to go, and started looking at professional speakers, at all those authors and economists and things like that, and started recruiting. But remember, that was done by mail. Sit and type
Wow.
a letter on a typewriter,
That's so cool.
mailing it out, and the research
Wow.
person at my local library became my best friend, because I would call her and say, okay, I need to send a letter to Walter Cronkite. Could you look up who's who in America and give me his address? Because that's how I got addresses. And she would, and I'd type a letter. I mean, that's how we did things. It seems so ancient, but yet it seems like yesterday, so that's kind of how I got started.
Wow. For everyone listening here who has complained about prospecting and doing research online, I just want you to take a moment and listen to that level of prospecting and just be grateful for a second that that's not the situation you're in right now
Right.
and to continue prospecting. So I'm just going to put that sidebar out there for a second because Diane, that is hustling. That is
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Talk about respect. I mean, oh my
So
gosh.
things took time,
Sure.
I'd wait and wait, hope for a letter back because that one thing that Who's Who in America did not have is phone numbers. So,
Sure.
that became a challenge. But yeah, that's sort of how we did it.
Okay. I
Phone and
can't help
mail,
but
phone and mail.
how did you keep track of all of it? Like, what was the mechanism to keep
It
things
was
from?
all, paper stuff. Computers
Yeah.
were, not there yet. I mean, I remember when I got my first, whatever it was called, it was sort of a little computer in a typewriter, whatever that thing was called. And, eventually once I got computers and stuff, it became different. And then the internet and all of that. But yeah, I mean, when I started, it was really paper files and sending letters, as I said. And that's how we did it and made phone calls. So you needed a
Wow.
typewriter and a telephone, and you were in good shape.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
We really take it for granted
Respect.
how easy our
We
life
do.
is sometimes, I
Seriously.
think.
Yes.
So, okay, we could talk about the history of the speaking industry literally forever. And in fact, maybe that should be a topic of the future. For those of you watching the
Sure.
YouTube version of this right now, drop a comment down below if you want to see us do an episode on the history of the industry. Maybe, Diane, we could get a little bit more
Sure.
of your attention. But I do want to segue a little bit into this business that you created, right? I mean, it started with Goodman Speakers Bureau, right?
Yes.
And has now since segued into Goodman Speakers Management
Yes.
Company,
So
right?
Goodman Speakers Bureau is now Goodman Speakers, and Jenna George is the president of that. She had worked with me for a long time, and we knew this was destined to be. And so I think it's been 3 years now. She took over the company, and I maintained. I had started a speaker management company, and I maintained Goodman Speaker Management. So, as you can imagine, there's a lot of confusion. The word Goodman is like both sides, and people don't always know who's who, but we are really good about saying, "Oh, you want to speak to Jenna," or Jenna says, "Oh, you want to speak to Diane." So, but yes, so yeah,
That
it was
makes
time to
sense.
just move into something. The management side is a little different; it's a different business model, but it's still in the same industry. And for so many years, I worked closely with speakers and mentored speakers and helped them build their businesses, and it just became a business after a while. But it's something it's very near and dear to my heart. I just love the work that speakers do, and I learn so much from them, and they really touch people's hearts, and so it's a good thing.
Well, we
Yeah.
totally stand behind that. We say
That's
all the
right.
time that something that really fires us up is knowing that we get to influence the reach that these speakers have. Like they get to go out and, change the world and improve people's
Absolutely.
lives in one way or another. We're kind of a
Mhm.
catalyst for that, your types of businesses and ours. So we like that a lot. I There's so many terms that get thrown around. And to your
Yep.
point earlier about people kind of just stumbling into this space, I think a lot of people find themselves speaking professionally and not knowing that they're in an actual multi-billion-dollar industry similar to how
Right.
you did. So speakers bureaus, speakers agents, speaker management companies, speaker association, like maybe some of those are more self-explanatory than others, but get from somebody that really gets this stuff. Can you help our listeners understand the distinction between these different things, even just really high level?
Sure. So first of all, I think there's a distinction to make between types of speakers. And I always like to start there for speakers to step back and think for themselves which category, so to speak, do they fall into. To me, a professional speaker is someone who is making a living by speaking. That's what they do full time, that's their profession. But then you have kind of like the hybrid speaker, the one that is really maybe is an author and wrote a best-selling book, or is a has another job but loves to speak and has expertise in certain areas, but it's not a full-time profession. And then, of course, you have the academics who are professors and teachers and whatever. That's their job, but yet they also are speakers, good and bad or whatever. And then you have celebrity type speakers. So there's a lot of different categories. And so I think that for speakers bureaus, speakers that gravitate towards speakers bureaus are probably more in the professional speaker lane, and maybe not celebrity necessarily, but well known, the authors, consultants, those people who are quoted in the news and on all the talk shows all the time, would be the ones that speakers bureaus tend to work with, I would say.
Yeah.
Does that
Okay.
sound right? I mean,
So
do you have different
yeah, that
experience?
sounds right. We see that all the time for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, a bureau, and I think this is one of the biggest misconceptions that I think we hear from a lot of speakers is like they want to get into the space. And of course, naturally, the goal is to turn potentially from maybe that hybrid approach where they have a job and they're doing speaking to maybe doing it more full time.
Yes.
And so they're like, well, I can just hire a bureau to book gigs for me. And
That's
uh,
exactly right.
so, right. So, Diane, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah. So I think what you said is the misperception is correct. There is
Yeah.
that perception out there from speakers who want to get more business that all they have to do is get listed with the Speakers Bureau, and boy, their career is going to take off. So what I say to them is check some of those bureaus' websites, see how many speakers they have on there. And, where do you think you fit in? And why are you different than all the other speakers that are on there and things like that? I mean, speakers bureaus they're not really selling speakers. They're servicing clients. There's a huge difference. And so as a speaker, you need to find your lane. You need to know who you are, where you fit in, why, and where on a bureau they're going to want to highlight you and work with you. And, as I said, what makes you different than anyone else? And, that's, to me, the differentiating factor is huge because there is so much competition in any one of those topic areas on any one of those Speakers Bureau's websites. Topic of business, are you kidding? There's hundreds in that. So,
Yeah.
so, I mean, I do think that speakers have this false impression that they're going to get more business. Speakers have to get themselves a business, and
Yes.
that's the bottom line. They have to start there.
Ooh,
You heard
man,
it, folks.
Everybody listened to that a few times.
I'm just going
over.
to use this snippet over and over again in our coaching, Austin. I'm just going to replay that over and over and over again.
That's a good idea. Well, I mean, it makes sense, right? You got to help yourself before somebody else is
well,
even able to
I
help
do
you.
think that if a speaker gets listed with a bureau, and getting listed with a bureau in many ways doesn't mean a whole lot necessarily. I mean, it does in some ways, but it doesn't mean you just stop doing what you were doing the day before. Like you said, hustle. You've got to be out there. You've got to be writing articles. You've got to be blogging. You've got to be out in your community. You've got to be whatever to keep your name out there, get those referrals, get the buzz going about you. That's how you become a successful speaker. You don't do it by sitting back and waiting for the Speakers Bureau to call you. Not going to happen.
That's right. Yeah. Well, how is the Speakers Bureau even going to know you exist if you don't go out and make some noise? And I mean, I guess you could go pursue them. What's your take on that? Like, would you ever consider a speaker that approached you rather than you discovering them through their
sure. Yeah,
organic
no,
effort?
definitely. And I've given that a lot of thought because I thought we'd probably want to be talking about that a little bit. Oftentimes a client actually might call and say, I just went to a conference and I saw this phenomenal speaker. A no name, meaning no name not being, celebrity type. The content was great, delivery was great. If you don't know them, you really should. That's what you want happening. Okay.
Nice.
I mean, and, getting a referral from a speaker who has been well received by bureaus and whatever. If that type of speaker takes you under their wing, so to speak, and really feels you're ready or feels you have the potential to really make that movement, I'm happy to, if a speaker calls and said, Diane, I know you're inundated with speakers, blah, blah, but honestly, if you'd give him or her 5 minutes of your time, I just would like you to at least meet them. And I'm always happy to, if it's someone I respect and they're telling me someone else is that good, I respect that too. So, I mean, I'm sure I've been approached many, many times over the years, of course, by speakers directly. And, I just ask a few good questions and I know right away whether or not that's someone I want to work with. And, if they can't tell me why they're different than someone else, if they don't even know what their expertise is, if they can't tell me
Mhm.
why they're an expert in something, I know right away whether or not they're ready or ever will be ready. That's the other thing, too. I think there's a lot of, unfortunately, false expectations that they are going to make it to that next level or whatever. And oftentimes they're not. So back to some of the things we talked about in the beginning, don't give up that day job so fast.
Yeah,
I
make
mean,
sure you
you
know
have
what you're
to
doing, right?
really, really be able to know that you're on that kind of trajectory to be able to sustain making a living. It's not that easy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Well,
I
and
think
I
tough
this
think this
is
is
business out there for sure. There definitely
for
is, but
sure.
it's also a lot of
Austin, go ahead.
competition.
Yeah. I think this industry suffers from this like overnight success sort of thing where all of a sudden
Mhm.
Brene Brown is everywhere
Yeah.
or Mel
Right.
Robbins or insert other,
Yes.
extremely successful speakers
Hmm.
name here. And like there's this, and I don't know if people even are intentionally thinking about this or not, or if they just see it happen and think that somehow it'll happen to them too. But you can't bet on that. It's a business. At the end of the day, it's a business.
It
And
is a
the only way you start a
business.
business is by working
Right.
hard
You
for a
need a
while.
marketing plan. You need a business plan. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
business like any other business. And how are you going to get from point A to point B? Absolutely.
Mm,
I agree
yeah.
with you 100%. The other thing too is I think there's a perception that, you can make a lot of money real quick as a
Mm,
speaker.
Yeah.
And for speakers starting out or have only been speaking for a few years or and really don't have the kind of track record that they really, want to have before they approach a bureau or a management company or anything else.
Like, really understanding, like, you made a point earlier that, the bureaus are not selling speakers, they're servicing clients, and I just wanted to round back to that. I have an additional question to follow up with this, but
Hmm.
really, like, understanding at its core, like, what a bureau is doing. They're servicing clients who need the trust of a bureau to send a speaker in, because if you think about an event planner or a company hiring somebody, right, there's a lot of risk just hiring a speaker off the street who's claiming to have it put together. A
Absolutely.
bureau can help mitigate that risk and make sure that they're hiring the right speakers for their events. And so, what that means is if you're not in a position yourself as a speaker to sell yourself regularly at a decent fee, differentiate yourself, and know what your lane is, how in the world is a bureau going to position you otherwise, right? Because
Right.
as a bureau, you need to know what they do so you can say, oh, yeah, I've got this client. They'd be a great fit for this. You have to be able to bridge that gap. And without really knowing where your
They're really
lane
a
is, it's
matchmaker.
impossible.
Right.
Yeah, a matchmaker, right?
Absolutely. That's really what bureaus do. They
Yeah, for sure. And so on that note, so we've talked about bureaus a lot. So
Mhm.
speaker management companies, I think this is something that's come up more and more and more, especially in the time that speaker flow has been in existence. And as I think you alluded to this in your timeline that you painted for us earlier.
Mhm.
So can you help us understand what is a speaker management company and how is it different than a bureau?
Okay. So a speaker management company basically is like a back office to a speaker. So um, we do all the contracts, we do some marketing, we do some helping them build their business. We take care of all the logistics. We're just, they can go and speak, write, do all the things they need to do, and we handle all the back end office stuff for them. So, do we promote them? Of course, we promote them. We're constantly, doing that. But we are not, I say to speakers, and I think every other management company will say the same thing, we are not salespeople. We are not your sales team. We are
Mhm.
not going to be cold calling or
Amen.
any of that. We are going to support you. We're going to collaborate with you. We're going to, really work closely together with messaging and all of that. And that's what we do. Where a bureau is, as I said, working for the client. So they have hundreds of speakers they work with usually that they can tap into. So it's a different model. We're all looking to get business and service clients. I mean, with the speakers that I work with, I mean, I know where they fit, and I'm not going to put them someplace that they don't fit. And a speaker should never go someplace that they're not 100% sure they belong there. Don't say yes just because you need the money,
Yeah.
Mm,
right? You want to give a good presentation. You want people to leave that room saying, "Wow, that was powerful. I really learned a lot from that." And so I think that's the mistake sometimes some speakers make, is that it's about just getting that booking, getting that booking. It's got to be the right booking, because that's how you're going to build your reputation. That's how you're going to get the internal referrals. And it's a slow process sometimes. That's the other thing I think that speakers have this expectation that once they get out there, it's just going to explode. It doesn't happen so quickly. And I think I remembered what I was going to say, and it ties into this, is that speakers want to raise their fee like after 3 months. Okay, time to raise my fee. I mean, I've had speakers call and say, okay, I'm going from 10 to 15. Oh, okay. Why? Did you come out with a new book? No, I just think that's what I should do. Okay, well, I'm not putting you out at 15, so good luck. I mean, I'm trying to be
Yeah, right. If you
honest.
don't have any
I
track
feel,
record.
if there's a reason, and there are absolutely times you raise your fee. We all want to do that, and there's the right time and the wrong time. That's the wrong reason to raise a fee. You're going to know when it's time to raise a fee. When you're so busy, you just need to, that's the time. But anyway, so I hope, did I clarify? There is a
Yeah,
a
that
real
was
distinction.
perfect. Yeah.
So I mean, I love to work with speakers bureaus. I want them to be promoting my speakers. Of course I do. But my job is to make sure they know where they fit, where the best place for them to be marketing
Mhm.
them would be. So, it's all about transparency and honesty, and knowing, again, really knowing who you are as a speaker and where your value is.
For sure.
Which is a challenging thing. So
It is.
we can acknowledge that all the people listening to this, they're like, you can figure this out. I promise. Sometimes it's just about getting reps in. Like, and
Yeah, for
I think
sure.
that's a good
Trial and error.
telltale. That's an indication of where somebody's at in their business. Like once you've done it enough, like it's like a puzzle. You just put enough of the pieces together, and all of a sudden
Absolutely.
you're going to look at a picture, even if it's not 100%
Hmm.
complete yet. So, I
Yeah.
mean, just don't lose faith for those of you that are still on the journey of trying to sort that out.
Yeah.
um, so I know, gosh, I can't believe that
I
we're
can't
already
believe how
coming
fast.
up on a
Yeah,
half
so
hour.
fast.
I've one question. Like we talked a little bit about how, like, it really depends on where you're at in your business as to whether or not a bureau is a good fit for you. I assume that there's an amount of that's true for speaker management
Hmm.
companies as well. But it also sounds like, I mean, anybody that is actually operating a speaking business, meaning they have clients and there are contracts that are coming through, and they probably could benefit from a speaker management company. So do you find that there's like a good time for somebody to consider that?
Yeah, I think speakers don't want to approach a bureau unless they're really doing at least 20 to 30 engagements a year.
It's a good number.
I think
Good
that's,
number.
I mean, that's just me saying that. I don't, other bureaus may feel differently, but
Sure.
that's what I always would ask those questions. Unless someone was really, Brene Brown, if she came to me and said, I'm not going to turn her away. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Right.
but
Yeah, there's a limit.
if it's your
Yeah.
average speaker who, is a good speaker and has a book and has great marketing materials and everything else, they just need to already be speaking and have a reputation. I mean, I do a lot of vetting, I will tell you that. And I think any reputable bureau management company client even is going to do some good vetting. So you want to make sure everything is current. You want to make sure that everything that is you're saying about yourself is truthful. Believe me, I've had situations along the way where just ain't so, and it's a terrible thing when something like that happens, where a speaker gave credentials that were not true or whatever. I mean, it's all about trust and honesty. You started out saying that, Taylor. Trust is huge. We have to trust each other and believe in each other and help each other. That's what we do.
Yeah, for
Man, I
sure.
love that.
So much truth in that. So,
Yep.
Diane, one last question for you, before we, segue out. What if someone is looking to get on this journey? Let's say somebody's listening, because we've talked about the people who might be a little earlier on in the journey listening. Let's
Right.
talk about to the folks who are kind of in that spot where they're kind of in that upper teens, 20, 30-ish kind of gigs per
Hmm.
year booked. They're feeling like, wow, this is a lot to manage. I feel like I'm getting some traction. I feel like now might be a decent time to approach a bureau or a management company.
Hmm.
What advice do you have for them to start that process of reaching out or building a relationship? Is there a really good way you like to see that happen?
Well, yes. I think they can reach out if they feel that confident and good. That's fine with just a nice, easygoing kind of introduction. Like, this is who I am, and
Yeah.
this is what I'm about. I would
Not
love
the
to.
whole life story.
Yeah, just not real. I would just like 15 minutes of your time, kind of thing, just respectfully. I mean, we
Nice.
all respect each other's time. It's like insane, right? So there's nothing wrong with doing that. Someone will respond, not interested, or we're not taking anyone on, or whatever. Or sure, let's find some time. I mean, just a simple, this is where I am, and I'd like to just have a conversation. There's nothing wrong with
That's
that.
perfect.
And again, like I said, if you know someone else that can introduce you, that's beautiful. That's going to at least get you a conversation, I think.
Yeah.
And obviously, like I said, if they've spoken to a client who has a relationship with a bureau, ask them, would you mind letting them know about me? Because I'd love to
Yeah.
work with them too. So it's just about being true to yourself, who you are. Don't be pushy. Don't be, you know what I mean. I don't even need to say the words.
Yeah. Oh man, I,
I
I
hear
love
you.
that you gave
That
that
will get
simple
you no
advice.
phone calls and no
No
relationships.
phone calls. Yeah, it's so funny. So many times people have been like, "Yeah, I've tried reaching out to bureaus and just no one's responding to me." I was like, "Okay, well, let me see your email."
Yeah.
And it's just a a Bible of
Yeah.
information. Here's my video. Here's my all of the things. And it's like, okay, well, it's very promotional. Like, can we just start off with being a human first? So
Right.
the fact that you just emphasize that it's just being really authentic, just
Yes.
being a human, not
Mhm.
being overly promotional. Like, guys, it's okay to put yourself out there. You don't have to like wait for everything to get attracted to you. Some
Mhm.
things that will happen, but sometimes the law of attraction, that means you're taking action at the same time. And so
Exactly.
don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Like
Right.
Diane said, if it's going to be a fit, they'll reach out,
Mhm.
they'll express interest. And
Yeah.
sometimes people say no. That's okay. That doesn't mean it's not
We
worth it
all
or you're not
deal
ready
with
yet. It's
rejection. We're
we all deal with
big people
rejection.
now. We know how to take it. So
Big, well, that's right. Especially
You'd
being
hope so.
business owners. Diane, how much rejection do you think you faced in life
well,
of running a
more
business?
than I would like, but enough to
Yeah, of
make
course.
me humble. So
That's exactly right. Make you humble.
More than I would like, but
Oh,
enough to make
no.
me humble. That's
That's a
that's a
great
great
phrase.
line right there. I'm gonna
What a
keep that with me.
golden nugget there.
yes.
Diane, what a powerful episode. I feel like we could just talk for, as
Well, I
we
think we need
indicated
another
earlier,
episode
hours.
somewhere down the
Oh,
road.
yeah, for
Yeah.
many, many episodes, I'm sure.
Yeah,
So
I think we
definitely
do.
leave us some comments below, folks. If you want to learn more from Diane, what is it you want to hear about? Leave a comment if you are
Yeah.
watching the YouTube video. And Diane, so
Yes.
if someone wants to learn more about all the things that you're up to and your speaker management company, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Well, my email address, it's a long one, but it's pretty simple to remember. It's just Diane at GoodmanSpeakerManagement.com. That's probably the best way. I do respond to emails, and they can certainly call me. My phone is 860-849-1914. I do return phone calls, and I love to talk with people. I love people. I love this industry that we're all in. I just think, we're all in it together. And if I can help people along the way, I'm certainly happy to do that. And really have enjoyed getting to know both of you very much. Really.
Oh,
This has been
same.
delightful.
Yeah, what
I
a great
agree.
conversation. Rest in peace, your phone number, by the way. So I hope
Oh,
that goes well.
yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Well, it's
Diane,
on the
this has been
website. So,
amazing. It's on the
if they
website
want to
anyway,
call,
right?
we're
So
going to
someone's
find
going
it
to find it
anyway.
regardless. Isn't that right? Yeah, for sure. Well,
Yeah.
guys, hey, if you liked this episode, don't forget to rate it, like it, subscribe to it. And if you want more awesome resources like this, go to speakerflow.com/resources. Thank you so much for chiming in. I just wanted to take a second to thank our sponsor, Auxbus. Auxbus is the all-in-one suite of tools you need to run your podcast. And it's actually what we run here at SpeakerFlow for Technically Speaking. It makes planning podcasts simple. It makes recording podcasts simple. It even makes publishing podcasts to the masses simple. And quite honestly, Technically Speaking wouldn't be up as soon as it is without Auxbus. Thank you so much, Auxbus. And if you are interested in checking Auxbus out, whether you're starting a podcast or you have one currently, get our special offer, auxbus.com/speakerflow, or click the link below in our show notes.
Thanks for tuning in today. Check the show notes for more info and see you next time. Later.